For your free quote, call 800-244-6060. That's 800-244-6060. 800-244-6060. Or go to selectquote.com. Since 1985, we shop, you save.
Get full details on the example policy at selectquote.com/commercials. Or price could vary depending on your health, issuing company, and other factors. Not available in all states.
Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Lavache, you're all set with your mortgage. And I assume you understand what you just signed.
Yeah.
A stack of papers, George?
That's right. And for future, just call this number if you need anything.
That
ooh, yeah, I'm gonna need that pen back.
The mortgage process can be confusing. Looking for the right rate, the right term, and most importantly, the right place to get your mortgage. At Clinton Savings Bank, we are committed to getting the mortgage that's right for you. You may even receive up to a $750 credit off your closing costs. Plus, right now, you can lock in the rate from your pre-qualification for 90 days while you look for a home. So what are you waiting for? Definitely not this.
Oh, boy. Hi, Mrs. Lavache. How can I help? You're breaking up. Try again later.
Subject to credit approval. Offer may be withdrawn at any time. For complete details, exclusions, and credit cost and terms, call 888-744-4272. Apply at ClintonSavings.com. NMLS number 422081. Member FDIC. Member DIF. Equal housing lender.
We know why you're awake. Your child is about to get their driver's license. Levante's Auto School offers 1-week driving programs to help make sure your child stays safe and focused behind the wheel.
Call 877-DRIVE-ED.
Who's Ed?
That's the number for Levante's Auto School.
Learn to drive safely and efficiently. Visit one of our 5 locations throughout Massachusetts. Click LevantesAutoschool.com.
Levante's Auto School shows you how to learn the rules and keep your cool. Call 877-DRIVE-ED.
Who's Ed? That's the number for Levante's Auto School.
Hi, this is Brian Carpenter from One Worcester Homes. We're excited to offer the strongest buyer and seller representation throughout Worcester County and all the surrounding areas. Our agents are trained better and will look out for your best interests throughout the entire transaction. To reach out to One Worcester Homes, simply find us on Facebook, type in One Worcester Homes. We look forward to the opportunity to help you and your family in your home buying or selling transaction. And don't forget to join us the 4th Saturday of every month at 7:30 on Handling Change.
The following is a paid program. The opinions are those of the host and guests, and not necessarily those of the station or its management.
This is the Joe Mangicotti Show. Our topics are large and small. When you really need to know, we are the show. You want to know? It's time to talk to Joe.
All right, folks. Good morning. Good morning. I'm Joe Mangicotti. Welcome to day 2 of the Joe Mangicotti Show. Sunday morning, bright and early, 6 a.m. Good morning, Cam.
Good morning.
How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. Great show yesterday. Jerry Doherty was in for the first hour or so. Great show, Making Money Last, Monday through Friday, 11 to 12 noon. Today we have a great show lined up as well, because in hour 2, we're actually going to be joined by Gregory Wrightstone. Now, he is the author of Inconvenient Facts. Remember Al Gore's book, Inconvenient Truth? Well, this is the anti-Al Gore book, Inconvenient Truth. And it's just a bunch of facts, and it's looking at the science of climate change and global warming. Of course, we should be underwater, and all the polar bears should be gone, according to Al Gore at this point. And I've always maintained, look, I don't pretend that the pollution doesn't affect the planet. Of course it does. All of that does. We have reduced pollution. We've reduced CO2. But CO2 is a very important part of the planet. It's all part of the balance. I mean, one volcano puts enough ash and pollutant into the air to equal, a major city in a year. It's all part of the balance. Now, plastic in the oceans, big problem. All of that, nobody with a brain is denying any of that. But all of these climate hoaxes is well, we've got to punish you and tax you and create all of these where people like Al Gore have become worth hundreds of millions of dollars on this BS. And everybody points to the United States of America that we're supposed to foot the bill for all of this, and we're the evil ones. But when you look at it on a global picture here, I mean, China and India, they're responsible for far more plastic and pollutants, but we have no control over them. So all you're doing is handicapping the United States. But we'll find out what the story is behind the story when we talk with Gregory in the 7 o'clock hour. Other than that, phone lines open and available. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Again, that's 508-871-7000. Again, lines are available and open. We keep it open for whatever topic or subject you'd like to discuss. We have a text line at 617-297-8388. 617-297-8388. I did get the messages. I know a couple people, the conversation went yesterday a little bit about term limits and getting them installed. And of course, you're never going to have members of Congress limit their own terms in Congress, right? Cam, that ain't going to happen, buddy.
Yeah, that doesn't add up.
So it's a process that we've got to go through convention with 38 states. We'll get into that in one show in the future and break that down and have some experts explain how that could happen. In other words, we the people can take control and make that happen. But it's a long process, and you've got to get, again, 38 states on board with that. So text line, if you have a device but you don't have the ability to text, like you do have a laptop but you don't have the cell phone or smartphone, you can email me at textjoeintheradio@gmail.com, and it appears on the same screen. All right. And I always, at the beginning of each show, tell you we do have an office number, which is 508-603-9778. Again, 508-603-9778. I have the window open because it's actually warm in here, and look at the wind. So I'll get that closed, guys, because I'm sure it's screening on the mic. Cam, I don't know. No, you don't hear it? All right.
Not too bad.
All right. And you can also email the show at joemshow@gmail.com, which I think most of you have ended up using the textjoeintheradio@gmail.com. So hour two, we'll talk with Gregory Wrightstone regarding his book, and that is the Inconvenient Facts. But he also has a lot of more information as to what this is going on and why Al Gore may not have hit it right on the head when it comes to the nail. Gregory is a geologist with the best-selling author of Inconvenient Facts, the science that Al Gore doesn't want you to know. All right, so that's coming up. All right, some other things in the news I wanted to point out. Do you remember our friend Nick Sandman? Cam, you remember Nick? He was the student, Coventry student, where the Native American and vet got into his face.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that whole thing was a matter of the way the media covered that is they showed this clip, and he just stood there, and he did have a smirk on his face. But what they didn't show you was the harassment that him and some of the other students received for wearing mega hats. And they really tried to spin this, that this kid, Nick Sandman, harassed this man who, him and actually his group, were the antagonizers. So we're sure that if Nick Sandman and his family could get in a time machine and travel back to last January, they would get to go through great lengths to make sure that Covington Catholic teen didn't wind up serving as America's most hated person for a period of a few days. However, he has fought back, and we've talked about this before. He was bringing lawsuits. He cleared some huge hurdles because you can't just sue people. I mean, you've got to sue. You've got to show that you have a case and that there is the ability to win and that you do have a reason for bringing a civil suit. Well, he passed those hurdles. So, there's no time machine and no way to erase the torrents of hatred that poured in on this. Then he was 16 years old. He did take a settlement from fake news CNN. So They were talking, I think the suit he brought was $250 million. Now, of course, the whole process or purpose behind that wasn't to reward Nick, but what he wanted to do was prevent this from happening to other people and prevent the likes of CNN from ruining someone's life who should not be in the spotlight and treated the way he was treated. So according to One America News, the Sandman family may have procured a settlement of some $25 million from the network, stemming from their biased fictional coverage of the Lincoln Memorial incident. CNN agreed Tuesday, this is a quote from them, CNN agreed Tuesday to settle a lawsuit with Covington Catholic student Nick Sandman. That's Fox Channel 19 reported that. The amount of the settlement was not made public during the hearing at the federal courthouse in Covington. As reported, the financial settlement figure is officially unknown, and we're sure there are clauses in place to prevent either party from revealing that number. But even an OANN is off by a few million, this is a windfall for the Sandman family, and it will surely make CNN think twice about spreading vicious fake news in the future. But will it? Will it, though? What's interesting is other people got in on that. So, well, it would anyway, if it didn't constitute their entire business model. CNN was probably more vicious in its direct attacks on Nicholas than, say, the Washington Post. CNN goes into millions of individual homes. I guess they do. They also go in, airports and gyms. Do you go to the gym, Cam?
No, I do not.
I've gone to Planet Fitness, and there's always CNN on there. But they also have other channels, so you got to pick the bike closest to the screen you want to watch. Anyway, CNN will probably, they really went after Nicholas with the idea that he was part of a mob that was attacking the black Hebrew Israelites, yelling racist slurs at the black Hebrew Israelites. Totally false, he continued. Now you say you've seen the tape. If you look, the time it took at the full context of what happened that day, Nicholas Sandman did absolutely nothing wrong. He was, as I've said to others, he was the only adult in the room. That's a quote. In an era that has brought an astonishing amount of fake news into the people's homes, the mainstream media attack on this kid was a whole nother level of terrible. This was a kid whose only sin was to wear a hat supporting President Trump. Think about that. A teenager supporting his president by wearing a hat supporting the President of the United States. And having the misfortune to be photographed with an arrogant seeming smirk on his face. And I'll give you that. He did nothing but stand there, but boy, does he have that smirk that could drive you crazy. I'll give you that, but that's no reason to attack him the way you did. For that, the CNNs and the Washington Posts of the world tried to destroy this kid's life. This is the first lawsuit Sandman and his attorneys have successfully settled for both the good of the family and the future of our entire news industry. It will hopefully not be the last. I think he also has a suit against, Elizabeth Warren and Tina Fey because of stuff that they said as well. So that's some news on Mr. Sandman out there. All right, 508-871-7000. Lines open and available, taking your calls. We're going to cover a few things, but we will also talk about anything you'd like to talk about as well. All right. Liberals say gun sanctuary cities are just like pro-slavery states. Now, we've been watching this heat up in Virginia particularly because you have the concept of sanctuary cities now being applied against the Second Amendment bans. So it's funny, we don't remember the Washington Post giving space to any cities of the sanctuary city movement to compare these illegal aliens havens to the Confederate states? No. When California, New York, and hundreds of other blue states, or blue enclaves, decided to flaunt their refusal to cooperate with federal immigration law, the left went out of their way to support these brave anti-Trump politicians. Indeed, they did. They harshly criticized the Justice Department in places like Orange County, California, for pushing back against these borderline illegal mutinies. But when it comes to Second Amendment sanctuary, such as the type currently spreading across Virginia, oh well, that's a different story. Calling the movement everything from disturbing to dangerous, critic Peter Galzelski himself in the Post pages this weekend when he compared these proud Virginia patriots to pro-slavery forces prior to the Civil War. Wow, a sad irony in that the sanctuary movement conjures the disturbing nullification movements of the past 3 centuries in Virginia, he wrote. Crazy, right? Just because it's Virginia, they're going to go this route. Thomas Jefferson and James Madison argued that the states have the right to ignore federal laws they consider unconstitutional. That thinking was applied to pro-slavery movements leading to the Civil War and the fight over immigration in the 1950s, into integration in the 1950s and 60s. Wow. If we may, there's a few differences. First, if this is about federal law, then it is the Second Amendment counties, not Northern Democrats, who are on the side of the U.S. Constitution. These sheriffs and local officials are merely saying that they will not lift a finger to carry out gun bans and confiscations if the Democrats in Richmond pass these insane laws. To compare that to the pro-slavery movements is not only disrespectful, it's intellectually dishonest, unless, of course, Galzelski has his history of criticizing illegal alien sanctuaries for the same thing. We sort of doubt it. But if Galzelski is right about anything, he's close to the mark when he calls this movement dangerous. The only thing that's wrong about is where the danger is emanating from. Not Second Amendment groups and county sheriffs who want to preserve Virginia's constitutional rights, but it's the newly elected Democrats who are drunk over their own power. Governor Northam, in his legislature, needs to take a close look at what's going on across the state and reconsider quickly, moving forward, with whatever boneheaded gun control laws they're planning on enacting. The potential for violence is high and indeed has already been threatened by the governor and others. It's been said for a long time, responsible law-abiding gun owners will not watch their rights fly out the window without a fight. It is really a fight that Northern and Virginia Democrats want. Is it really a fight that they want? This brings me to a post that appeared. Nashua State Representative, she lost her mind on Facebook. She wants to send Trump voters to work camps and disarm them. I don't know, I've seen a lot of hatred, and I've even seen the beatdowns and assaults from the left, from Antifa. I've never personally came across a conservative or a Trump supporter who was violent like that. Again, I've never heard or met somebody on the right who acted like an Antifa or like the out-of-control collegiate kids. So, from the TB Daily News, Nashua State Rep Losers of Mine on Facebook wants to send Trump voters to work camps, disarm them, all while she sits at home collecting SSDI. So Deb Stevens, she's in the Nashua Ward 7 state rep up there, So she writes, if Trump loses in 2020, these people who have been stockpiling ammo and amassing weaponry are planning to start a civil war. It's an awful broad stroke there, right? Brush of people. First of all, I think it's very incorrect, and I've said this before. If people who have guns and ammo are the problem, wouldn't you know it by now? With billions of rounds of ammunition and an estimated 800 million weapons in the United States, wouldn't you know it if that law-abiding citizen was the problem? Yeah, guns are a problem by the few who illegally obtain them for nefarious purposes. But she continues to write, so they're planning to start a civil war. What will that be like? Are they planning a mass slaughter? Who will the enemy be? Those who voted for Trump opponents? How will their intended victims be identified? These people are unstable, full of hate and bigotry, and boldly threaten violence should be the election produce defeat for Trump. Talk about paranoia. These people are planning to use their guns to deliberately harm others. These are the dangerous people among us who own guns and brazenly declare their intentions to harm people who disagree with their views. When there is a mass slaughter, often the question is, what did we miss? If these obvious disturbed declarations are not taken seriously, you've missed the red flags. And we're back to the red flag laws. You've missed the red flags. And she hashtags it, red flag laws saves lives, and run Rambo fantasy. So that's from a state rep in Nashua, New Hampshire. Wow. What say you? 508-871-7000. We've talked about Common Core, too. I wanted to bring this story, came up across the desk as well. Florida school did not drop the Common Core, did not soar to number one. So the school did not adopt Common Core in the first place. Additionally, 4 public schools that participate in Common Core ranked above Mason Classic Academy. So the Common Core has been, and we've discussed this before, we've had Donna Colorio on before, the schools who don't follow this Common Core tend to score higher. The Common Core is that whole new math. And I don't know if you've ever seen just the simple times thing. Cam, have you ever seen this Common Core, the new math?
Yeah, it's like a different way of like thinking when doing these math problems.
Completely new, different way of thinking. I mean, 10 times 13, right? 130. They have you break it down into the tens, and you've got 110, and then you got 3 individuals. It literally takes probably 8 minutes to work a problem out with the Common Core thing versus about 40 seconds, with what I was taught in my generation in school. You can actually go online and Google it, and someone took a simple mathematician, a multiplication problem, put it on the board, split screen on the left. They're doing the Common Core on the right. They just do it the traditional way, and then they actually have enough time to make a cup of coffee. Like open the canister, put the grinds in, put it in the maker, hit the button, put in the water, hit the button, let it brew, have a fresh cup of coffee before they're able to work it out. But I see. Point is, Common Core hasn't been. We've talked about this before. The study shows that schools who dropped the Common Core and got away from that have jumped up in their academic rankings. So good for them. Never supported the Common Core. The other thing I wanted to point out, because here we are in the beginning of the year, and in the shows right at the end of the year, I brought up the 38 officers that we lost in 2019 in the line of duty. It almost averaged an officer a week. It was very sad. But we've had first officer lost in the line of duty in 2019 in Tennessee. Highway patrol officer shot during Chattanooga car chase. Tennessee Highway Patrol officer was injured after being shot during a car chase Thursday night on U.S. Highway 27 heading north on 153. Happened about 8 o'clock at night. The suspect, Cody Seals, crossed the median and left the roadway and crashed. The trooper and Seals exited their vehicles and began an exchange of gunfire. Trooper Khaled Ghazi was struck, and Seals was also injured. The second trooper, Rich Thomas, was also involved, but it is not clear who injured Seals. Both Ghazi and Seals were taken to the local hospital and are in stable condition. The incident closed a portion of the highway from Single Mountain Road to Highway 53. Doesn't matter when the investigation was conducted. Multiple law enforcement agencies were involved in the investigation, and we're extremely fortunate that those troopers are okay. The first shooting of an officer in 2020 in Chattanooga. All right, what else? So going on with the articles, they've been transmitted over. Finally, we talked about this a little bit yesterday. What was gained by all of that? What was gained by that? Now, I've watched some of the talking heads yesterday, and I'm sure I'll watch them again this morning, and figure out what the spin's going to be. But the left is trying to spin it that she gained something out of this. But anything that it's been to gain is probably fabrication. But we need to take a break here on the Joe Mangiacotti Show. 508-871-7000. Lines open and available. Stick with us. I'll be back on the other side.
Have you heard of the hottest new bakery around? I know you heard about it right here. My friend Al has opened Nothing Bundt Cake in the White City Plaza in Shrewsbury. Nothing Bundt Cake is a bakery chain and is locally owned and operated by my friend Al. They have bundt cakes ranging from bite-sized to tiered, plus platters, candles, and cards. Stop by and check them out. Everything is baked from scratch and on site. Nothing beats a sweet surprise. And until you try one of Al's bundt cakes, you haven't tried a real bundt cake. Stop by and ask for Al. Tell him Joe told you to stop by. 98 Boston Turnpike, White City Plaza near Planet Fitness, Shrewsbury. And on Facebook as well, Nothing Bundt Cake, Shrewsbury.
This is Wes Oliver with Prestige Home Mortgage from Handling Change. I can help you with all of your residential mortgage needs, from a purchase to a refinance or even an estate buyout situation in the event of a family death. You can call or text me at 508-332-4171 or on the web at wesoliverteam.com.
Good morning and welcome to Handling Change from the Candiani Insurance Studios. I'm Joe Mangiacotti, and Brian Carpenter of One Worcester Homes joins us this week. The purchase and sale of your home or investment property could be one of the largest challenges you have, and Brian can help you handle those challenges. Good morning, Brian.
Morning, Joe.
Hey, I wanted to jump right into something. We talk about buying and selling, listing a property, the things to look for, and you are always telling us about your people and what you do that's different than anyone else. And it got me thinking about a career in real estate. What is it like to have a career in real estate, and how long after you become a realtor, or I should say more accurately, an agent, right, before you can expect your first paycheck?
Just watch HGTV. They'll tell you how easy it is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Flipping too.
Yeah, so becoming a real estate agent is a fairly regulated process. It's one of the things you do need a license from the state. So the first thing you need to do is get your education. Massachusetts has a 40-hour mandatory class before you can even go and take the test. You can get that at a few different places. Obviously, One Worcester Homes has started one of those courses. It's One Worcester Homes Real Estate Academy on Facebook. There are some other places that actually offer online classes as well, so some people can take those classes right from
right from their bed or sometimes from their job. But there are online classes available. Once you finish that class, you have to go and take a test that's very well regulated by the state, just as you would if you were an electrician or a plumber or a lot of other industries that are state regulated and state licensed.
Well, this test, I assume, deals a lot with maybe the law involved here. It deals with maybe math, for that matter. But I don't think they can really test you on how well you can sell a house or deal with people.
Yeah, and again, that's one of the things that One Worcester Homes agents do well. We're really not trying to sell that house. We're out to protect the client. After you pass that test, that brings you to the next major milestone in a real estate career, is choosing where to hang your license or choosing where to work. There's a lot of different places out there, and as soon as you pass your test, you're going to start getting mail and email and text messages. People are going to be recruiting you. Just be aware, this is not a job interview for you. This is a job interview for that brokerage. What can they offer you for your career, and what can they do differently than other places?
Interesting point is that you should be looking at it as what can they offer and what tools do they have for me, opposed to what can I bring to the table for them.
Absolutely. A lot of agents will sign with the first brokerage they talk to. More often, they'll even sign with the brokerage who they took their course through or wherever the courses were located. They just don't realize that you should be shopping for your brokerage. And, usually 1.5 to 2 years in, new agents will start to figure out that there could be different and better options out there that might fit them and their personality better. So it's definitely an industry where people do move, 2 to 3 years into their career, they tend to find their forever home.
So if you become a real estate agent, what are the things you want to look for in the brokerage firm where you're going to hang your license?
So there's a lot of different things, but the one word that really comes to mind is support. Do you have someone that will answer the phone when you call? Do you have someone that will show you how to do paperwork correctly? Do you have someone that will help provide you some leads or a jump start to your career? It's not uncommon for an agent to go 3, 6, 12 months without closing a deal, which obviously isn't good financially, but it takes time to learn the things that you need to do.
What is the average time to your first deal? Because you don't get paid till that first deal closes, right?
Yeah, that's the thing about real estate that a lot of people don't understand is we don't get paid until the completion of the sale. That means you have your keys and you're moving into the house, or you've given away your keys and you're driving away in the moving truck if you're selling. So we put all of our work and all of our energy, our marketing dollars, we put all of that out there in advance to be paid later on when the property does close. If you're really putting your effort in and working as a full-time agent, 30 to 45 days when you start, you should put your first property under agreement, and about 45 days later you're going to get paid. So you should be about 3 to 4 months from when you start making an effort in real estate until you see some of the fruits of those labors.
Well, that's a substantial investment in both your time and, of course, money, because you have no income during that time. Not everybody can really jump into real estate full-time, full force.
A lot of people absolutely start this as a part-time career. They close a deal or two, maybe they do 3 in their whole first year, and they put that money aside so they have the opportunity to cut back on their hours at the regular job. We have a nurse in our office who cut back from full-time to per diem. Now she works when she needs to instead of all the time. So there's definitely a learning curve, a growing curve, and it takes time to build up your client base and for people to understand that this is a career and not a hobby or something you do for extra money.
I've always been curious, Brian, is there one particular industry or field of employment that you find a lot of people either also do real estate or transition into full-time realtors?
School teachers make amazing real estate agents. They have the time off in the summer when things are really getting busy in real estate. They have a very set schedule, and although they can't exactly answer their phone during those, school hours, from 2 o'clock on or 3 o'clock on, they're available to their clients, they're available on weekends, and that's when real estate happens. So some of our best agents come from the education industry.
Oh, that's fantastic. And you said that One Worcester Homes now offers a real estate academy.
Absolutely. One Worcester Homes Real Estate Academy can take care of the 40 hours of education and get you all set up to take your test.
Last question real quick. Is there any cost to taking the real estate classes in schools across the board or with One Worcester Homes?
Absolutely. The cost for those classes is typically between $350 and $500. One Worcester Homes Real Estate Academy is at the lower end of that because we really want to get people in there and meet as many people as we can, and if we get the best and the brightest to come through our class, we're going to keep them with our brokerage if we can.
All right, Brian. Again, fantastic information, good knowledge for everybody to have. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for joining us for Handling Change from the Cantiani Insurance Studios. Join us each week at 7:30 as we give you the tools to handle the changes in your life. Visit us at handlingchange.info, and you can find Brian at Facebook at One Worcester Homes or email him at oneworcesterhomes@gmail.com. And of course, you can call Brian at 508-494-8757. For Brian, I'm Joe Mangiacotti.
It's time to talk to you.
All right, folks, welcome back to segment 2 here, the Joe Mangiacotti Show. Good morning. Good Sunday morning to you. Have a good weekend so far, Cam?
Yeah, not too bad.
Yeah.
Watched a lot of football.
A lot of football. Do you go out Saturday nights knowing you got to come in here or what?
Sometimes. It doesn't. This doesn't prevent me
I
from
bet you
my
I
nights.
can tell the nights you go out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't let the early mornings prevent me from going out. I figure the good nights are a lot better than how bad the early mornings are.
The trade-off is worth it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you
make
have
it
the
work.
luxury. I mean, you can stay behind the microphone and just...
Yeah, I get out at noon, so if I need a nap after,
there you go.
I'm good to go.
Yeah, that's true, too. By the time I get home, everyone else in the house is just getting up, if they're even up, right? All right, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. A text line is available as well, 617-297-8388. You can text us just like you would anybody or any device. If you don't have the ability to text, you can email me at textjoeintheradio@gmail.com, and it will happen the same way. All right, I wanted to get into this resolution on war powers. It has no teeth to it. Nancy Pelosi's claiming that it does, but let's go to the phones first. Good morning, Lieutenant. Ken.
Good morning, Colonel Joe. Lieutenant Ken reporting. Good time, just so that your welcoming me was cut off. I wasn't sure if you were catching me or not.
Oh.
Then again, you have the little bell, too, that should indicate, yeah.
Do we have a bell? Is there a tone or something when we click you on?
Yeah, it's like a tone.
Oh, is there?
A tone that cuts off the 7-second or whatever the gap is.
Oh,
and
okay.
It's timed just so I can't even hear you introduce me.
I got it. So when you see me go into the call and you hit the button, he gets there's a little period that is cut out.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good morning.
Same to you. I wanted to bring up, you brought up the Sandman.
Nick Sandman. Can you imagine 25 mil? I mean, it's not confirmed, but...
Can I have somebody scream in my face?
You know what? I've gotten that done for nothing. So, but he went at the suit was for $250 million. So you figure even if they settled at 10% of it, that's still 25 mil.
Well, it sends a lot of messages.
That's the point,
I found it very interesting. You tracked it down on OAN because I doubt that that number has shown up anywhere else. And it's part of today's story where the old media is so awful. and if it's a story that doesn't fit their narrative, they don't tell it.
Right. Well, the other
story that's a story that's totally distorted, like this past week with what's going on in Iran, you have people like Martha Trader Raditz telling us how we're supposed to think.
Right.
And so I wanted to bring up, retrospective, just all that's happened the past few months, and then every week it's just this that it's time to create a new acronym.
Yeah.
The new acronym that I've come up with is the Hate America Media Stiffs.
Hate America.
Hams.
Say that one again.
Hate America Media Stiffs, because I think stiffs is a charitable word to tag them with. They're worse than stiffs.
Right.
And so it's hams. Why I like it is how through the years the leftists have come up with all sorts of words we never thought of 10, 15, 20 years ago. And usually there's something that really outrageous or ways of mocking us, traditional thinking people. And, you don't dare say anything to irritate those on the left. So now it's time to, for payback. So that literally you can be among a social setting and start talking about hams and talk about roasting the hams, and no one would know any different that you're actually criticizing the mainstream media.
The hate America. Media.
Hate America.
Media stiffs.
Just call them hams.
Yeah. But.
And then you could also call them hamsters.
Hate America. Media stiff. Stirs. Trump supporters? Trump.
Well, no, the hamsters is just, if you...
just to pluralize.
Yeah,
okay.
Yes, you call them hams or hamsters, either.
But I want to go back to Nick for a second, because the other thing is I did hear a little bit of this on Fox. What's his Guilford with Greg Guilford? Is that his show?
Could be.
Yeah, I think that's, and he's on the 5. So I mean, they talked about it a little bit. I heard that kind of thrown around as a figure there as well as America One.
Oh, okay.
But but the thing about this is what's important is, and before this happened, we've said it on this show, that it was important that we actually fight back and hold the media accountable for when they do this, so that they do what they were supposed to do in the first place, and that is journalism. exercise journalism, to report just the facts and to confirm those facts, and not to inject their bias and slant it to their beliefs and decide that they're going to omit things that would be, as if this was a trial, the exculpatory evidence, which they do on a consistent basis. And they need to start paying for when they violate the trust that we put into them as the fourth branch here, right? The fourth estate. And I think that when they start getting slapped with multi-million-dollar lawsuits, when they erroneously report, and the other part of this, Lieutenant, is if you back it back up to last January, if they had done what they should have done, well, first of all, what they should have done is covered the story accurately. But let's put a pin in that for a second. They didn't. And they should have retracted it, and they should have made it right. And if they had done that back then, the case never would have gone forward.
Exactly.
But they doubled down on it, actually. You know, and maintained and stuck with it. And I'm glad that whether it's 25, I don't care. Well, I hope it's at least 25 million because it needs to hurt them. I was going to say even $2.5 million, but honestly, is $2.5 million going to matter much to CNN? I mean, they're paying that to schmucks, to jamokes like Don Lemon, aren't they? Aren't these guys making $1 million, $2 million? You know, these anchors. What do you think Anderson Cooper makes?
In the 8 figures.
Yeah, not that he's got Vanderbilt money, but
yeah, not that he.
You know, he needs it or anything. But that's the kind of money that they get. Maybe I should start some kind of socialist movement for equity among media people. That guys like me should get a piece of that $8 million a year, because we don't get anything like that. We don't, it's a hobby more than a paid job. Put it that way.
I don't like that acronym, EMT.
EMT?
Equity among
equity
people would be EMP or EAMP.
Oh, yeah, I get it. Yeah, equity among media people. Hold on, I dropped it. But it's crazy what these people get paid. But the point is, they need to be slapped every once in a while when they are so blatantly slanted and biased. I mean, they just took. And if you go back and you look at that coverage, Ken, right, they just zoomed in on, and I'll admit, Mr. Nick Sandman has a grin that makes you want to slap him in the face. I'll give you that.
I don't agree with it.
He was just standing there smiling. He didn't do a thing. And what they left out was all the antagonizing and name-calling they did to him and the other students. And his way to handle it was just to stand there and do nothing.
Joe, if you look at that film, it was a remarkable show of maturity.
Right, and self-control. Because he didn't, you would have thought a 16-year-old kid might have been a punk about it, right?
Because you've described all the components. It was becoming a hostile situation, particularly with the black group. And here's a kid that's starting to get hostile, and I think he recognized right away, all right, calm it down. So that little, what they describe as smirk on his face was let's just calm down. He just had a little smile to try to calm everybody down that was around him. So I thought, it was appropriate for the circumstance, the way he handled it. And admirable in all ways.
Very much.
What he instead is attacked.
But how they used the just that close-up and left out all the other part, so that when the story first aired and first hit the airwaves, they made it, they edited it so it looked like he was kind of getting in the Indians' face, the Native Americans' face.
And he didn't move an inch.
Yeah.
He literally stood exactly firm with a small little smile to kind of try to calm everybody down. And what was the media focused on in that picture?
Oh, well, his smirk. Oh, the hat. Oh, it was all about the hat.
The smirk was secondary. It was all
Yeah, it was. I mean, the whole thing started because he wore a hat.
If he hadn't worn the hat, there never would have been any reaction whatsoever.
See, isn't that just a bizarre thing today? I mean, when I was a kid and even a teenager, regardless of who was in office, we were in awe of the presidency. We just, I would have been thrilled to wear, a hat that supported her because it was the office. You know what I mean? When we were kids, I was just brought up that America is a great country. This is how it works, and the president is that it was just the office was so awe-inspiring that I never would have thought as a kid or a totally to disrespect the office of the presidency like this. And
but see, you're describing a totally different era.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
We are now becoming what humankind used to be for almost all of humankind, tribal.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
so
true.
That's the difference.
That is true.
Is that when we were young kids, that humankind had developed to think rationally, and now we're rapidly. When I say we the two of us, but the other side, unfortunately, is becoming more and more tribal, which takes out rationality and explains why we've gotten where we are.
And the tolerance is gone. I mean, there's just no tolerance from this woman in the Nashua 7th Ward there that comes out with this. It's so bizarre because to me it's bizarro world. I have never, with all of the Tea Parties and rallies I've gone to, including the President Trump when he was in Worcester, the whole bit, never have I seen or personally experienced a Trump supporter or somebody conservative along the lines I am be violent or spew hate of the magnitude that I see come from the college kids on the left, on campuses, from the Antifa crowd, right? You can just go surf the net and go to PragerU and so forth. And you've got these, whether it's PragerU or some of the Will Whitman and these other guys that go out there, and they just interview on campuses or they set up a table, I believe in this, change my mind. The hate, and look at which has happened from college students, right? Universities, campuses, that are supposed to be the epitome of discussion, open discussion, and exchange of ideas. It's supposed to be where you learn and expand your mind, and how they have banned, the certain speakers, right? I mean, they go after Candace Owens and who's the other kid? I can't believe I'm drawing Shapiro, Ben Shapiro. Sure. Right? Ben Shapiro. They go out of their mind, not because these people spew hate or anything of that nature. As a matter of fact, they're extremely calm, reasonable, intellectual. It's that they don't like what they're saying. They don't like what they're saying because they can't combat it. So they convert or they reduce themselves to violence and anger, because they cannot win with these people. Have you seen anybody go up against Ben Shapiro or Candace Owens? They tear them apart in debate all the time.
On this score, I have disowned my own alum and my just graduated son's alum for the type of activity you're describing. And I've let them know. I've sent them email and said, don't send me anything again. I'm never giving you any again.
When did it start? See, that's the question. It started decades ago.
I've had students that were in college from 2009 through this past year, 2019. And I can tell you the progression. There wasn't much of it when my daughter started 10 years ago.
Which would have been a term into Obama's.
But it was around 2013, 2014 that it started to kick in. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I'm getting ticked off. And then when my youngest started in 2015, one of the first things he reports to us within a month of being on campus is that there was a required lecture where they preached about what's white guilt and all that nonsense.
White guilt.
Yeah.
How dare you be a white male?
So literally, he's telling me about it. I'm like, they're punching me in the nose. I just spent tens of thousands of dollars to educate you.
Yeah.
It's like, you got to be kidding me.
The white privilege stuff, right?
Right.
Wasn't it Buttigieg who apologized for being born white? It was one of the presidential candidates.
Sure.
It was crazy. Hey, I got another phone call, Ken. Anything you want to get in before we...
No.
Nope, good.
We'll be
All right.
back again next week.
Awesome. Thank you, Lieutenant. 508-871-7000. Good morning, Richard.
How you doing, Joe?
Good.
Yeah, a couple points I wanted to bring. You brought up the part about the school, and basically, the other thing that they don't do is cursive. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, I know. That's a joke going around that if there is ever another war, we're just going to communicate with cursive because no one will be able to read it under 40 years old.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. But this all started back in 1968. What's going on in the schools today, and they came out with outcome-based education. I had mentioned that a long time ago. And basically, this came out of Russia. And that's what Russia had. Russia had outcome-based education, and it worked so well over there. The kids were so stupid that they had to drop it because they couldn't do anything. They couldn't read. They were idiots. That's what they turned them out to be. And this is what they brought over here. And finally, when they get rid of that, what they did is they came out with Goals 2000. Remember that there? George Bush there?
Yeah.
He was pushing that like crazy. And then after that, you had School to Work. And it's unbelievable.
And then Common Core.
Children.
Right.
Common Core.
Several years ago, their whole Common Core thing came into thing, which was...
It's unbelievable what they're doing to our children.
Yeah.
Right? And we're paying for this. We're paying to have our children dumbed down. Right? It's pretty sad. I'm just glad that my oldest is 50 now. I don't have to worry about that. But this is what's going on. But the other thing you brought up, is the War Powers Act. Right?
Yeah.
I want to talk about acts.
Okay. Well, first of all, before you get into it, so people understand, so there was the resolution passed. We had actually 8 Democrats vote against this resolution, but 3 Republicans vote for it, including Matt Gaetz, which was surprising. And I just want to, before you get into what you wanted to say, so that listeners understand that, so this passed a resolution. It doesn't have any teeth. It doesn't really change what the president's going to do. Believe me, it's not going to change what this president's going to do.
No.
But it also doesn't give or take any powers away. It's just a resolution. But the fact that 8 Democrats voted against it is promising. But 3 Republicans voting for it. Now, that might just be, I think, they don't feel important enough that they have to be consulted. Look, when we go back to previous presidents, whether it's Obama, Bush, or Clinton, they ordered drone strikes, and in the case of Obama, the previous administration, thousands of drone strikes, without ever once consulting Congress or without congressional approval. And Clinton as well.
Clinton?
That's what I'm saying.
Blowing up that aspirin factory.
So, no problem. So the difference between a president doing something and President Trump doing something, it's so obvious that it's about it being Trump. And their hatred for Trump is skewing everything, and they are embarrassing the nation. They're warping the Constitution and shredding it at the same time. And they're setting precedences. Like this whole impeachment process has lowered the bar for impeachment now.
Oh, they can do it to anybody now.
Yeah, basically.
Whether it's a Democrat or Republican.
But you point on the Powers Act you wanted to bring up.
Okay, the War Powers Act. First of all, acts are not law. That's the first thing we have to understand, right? If Congress makes an act, basically what it is, it's a suggestion on their part. Okay, has nothing to do. And I'll go down to the Public Salary Act of 1939. Okay, that was for the federal income tax. all right? But the only thing is, they apply it to you and me, and everybody else. But the fact is, it was a contract between the states and the federal government. The federal government says, look, what we'll do is we'll take all your state employees now, right? And what we'll do is we'll collect the federal income tax from them. And then the state says, oh, okay, then all the federal employees that are in the state will, take a federal income tax from them. So there's a contract between the state and them. Nothing, all right? And then after that, you have the Buck Act. And then after that, you have the National Defense Authorization Act. You have Obamacare, all right? Affordable Care Act. All these things are just suggestions, Joe, on the part of Congress. They have no force and effect at all. And the other thing, too, is policy. How many times have you heard that some of these bureaucrats, FAA, FCC, and all them, IRS, they have policy. Well, you know as well as I do, policy is not law. Correct?
Correct.
But what they do is, this is how they come after us. They come after us under policy, all right? So people, you have to understand, what's going on with these bureaucrats. They've never been elected. They have no authority.
Right.
But what happens is, everybody from all these years going on, right, since Roosevelt, because Roosevelt's the one that brought all this, well, they were there before Roosevelt. And Roosevelt had to pass the Federal Register Act to bring them under control. And what Truman did, he came out with the Administrative Procedures Act in 1946 to control all of these, because they were totally out of control, Joe. They did what they wanted. They made regulations which didn't apply.
Right.
Because in 1979, the Supreme Court case, Chrysler versus Brown, in the Supreme Court case, they came out that only substantive regulations control you and me and the rest of the public out here.
Well, look, we've talked about this before, and I've said this before.
Yes.
People do not realize exactly how much of our lives are governed and controlled by administrations and bureaucrats who have never been elected, and they have no oversight power. We have no ability to make them answer for anything. I mean, when you start throwing in EPA and other government agencies, it's incredible. And they're just giving these bureaucrats, and they're there for decades. And look, we just kind of saw the attitude during these impeachment hearings. The problem is it's 59 and a half minutes after the hour. If you'd like to hold over, Richard, that's fine. Lee as well. But I've got a break for the news, and then we're going to be bringing in Gregory in hour 2 of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here, folks. Sorry about that, guys. We ran up to the clock. 508-871-7000. We'll be back in a moment.
WACE Chicopee and WCRN Worcester.
7 o'clock.
Deadly storms. Without power. I'm Christopher Cruz. At least 11 people, including 2 first responders, have died in severe storms that swept across the southern U.S. and into the Midwest yesterday. A police officer and a firefighter in Lubbock, Texas, were killed when they were hit by a car at the scene of a traffic accident. Lucille Jacobs made it through the storm that hit Shreveport, Louisiana.
I thank the good Lord it didn't happen no more than it did. We alive. God, this is material things. We gonna clean it up. Everything gonna be all right.
Hundreds of thousands of people were left without power from Texas to Ohio. Sections of flooded highways were closed in Oklahoma and Arkansas, and hundreds of flights were canceled at Chicago's airports. Many people in Puerto Rico are still without power almost 24 hours after the U.S. territory was hit by a magnitude 5.9 earthquake. It caused more damage along the island's southern coast, where previous recent quakes have toppled homes and schools. A gunman is on the run after shooting 5 people at an apartment complex in Aurora, Colorado this morning. Aurora is about 10 miles from Denver. Matthew Longshore is a police department spokesman.
Right now, we have a description on one. We're just hoping through our interview process and through our investigation work, that we can find the ones that are responsible for this.
3 juveniles and 2 adults were shot. Police believe the shooting happened at a party at the complex. More than a dozen Saudi servicemen training at military bases in the U.S. are being expelled. The decision to kick them out of the country was made after a review that followed a deadly shooting at a base in Pensacola, Florida. A 21-year-old Saudi Air Force second lieutenant shot and killed 3 American sailors last month. The review found some Saudis in the U.S. had connections to extremist movements, and some of them were in possession of child pornography. I'm Christopher Cruz.
Hey, I'm Andy. If you don't know me, it's probably because I'm not famous. But I did start a men's grooming company called Harry's. The idea for Harry's came out of a frustrating experience I had buying razor blades. Most brands were overpriced, overdesigned, and out of touch. At Harry's, our approach is simple. Here's our secret. We make sharp, durable blades and sell them at honest prices for as low as $2 each. We care about quality so much that we do some crazy things, like buy a world-class German blade factory. Obsessing over every detail means we're confident in offering a 100% quality guarantee. Millions of guys have already made the switch to Harry's, so thank you if you're one of them. And if you're not, we hope you give us a try with this special offer. Get a Harry's starter set with a 5-blade razor, weighted handle, shave gel, and a travel cover, all for just $3 plus free shipping. Just go to harrys.com and enter 6655 at checkout. That's harrys.com, code 6655.
Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Lavache, you're all set with your mortgage. And I assume you understand what you just signed.
A stack of papers, George?
That's right. And for future, just call this number if you need anything. And, ooh, yeah, I'm gonna need that pen back.
The mortgage process can be confusing. Looking for the right rate, the right term, and most importantly, the right place to get your mortgage. At Clinton Savings Bank, we are committed to getting the mortgage that's right for you. You may even receive up to a $750 credit off your closing costs. Plus, right now, you can lock in the rate from your pre-qualification for 90 days while you look for a home. So what are you waiting for? Definitely not this.
Oh, boy. Hi, Mrs. Lavache. How can I help? Oh, you're breaking up. Try again later.
Subject to credit approval. Offer may be withdrawn at any time. For complete details, exclusions, and credit costs and terms, call 888-744-4272. Apply at ClintonSavings.com. NMLS number 422081. Member FDIC. Member DIF. Equal housing lender.
I want to tell you what Cantiani Insurance has been able to do for me and Teddy. We stopped in to see Paul Sr. and the great staff at 318 Plantation Street. They've been handling my car and business insurance for years. Teddy was making his way around the office, and they let me know. They now offer pet insurance. For a fraction of what one visit to the vet was for Teddy, they could cover him for a whole year. I know you treat your furry family members like any other family member, and as well as I do Teddy. The professional staff at Cantiani's has been providing courteous service for over 40 years, with integrity and personalized service, making sure that your insurance actually protects you and your family. With 2 locations, the 318 Plantation Street in Worcester and East Douglas Insurance Agency, located at 306 Main Street in Douglas. For home, auto, business insurance, and now pet insurance, click CantianiAgency.com or call 508-791-2088. 508-791-2088.
This is the Joe Mangicotti Show. Our topics are large and small. When you really need to know, we are the show. You want to know? It's time to talk to you.
All right, folks. Welcome back to hour 2 of the Joe Mangicotti Show, Sunday morning. Good morning to everyone. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Lines are open and available. Our text line is also available at 617-297-8388. You can also email me at textjoeontheradio@gmail.com, and it'll come up on the same screen, so I get your texts and your emails that way. And that email and that text is live while we're on the air. So you can interact with the show that way or send messages. You can reach out to the show through our normal office email, which is joemshow@gmail.com. All right, coming up very shortly, Gregory is going to join us, and Gregory Wrightstone is the author of Inconvenient Facts, the science that Al Gore doesn't want you to know. So we'll be talking with him in a second. But right now, let's go to Waltham, and Lee's been waiting patiently and all the way through the break. Lee, good morning.
Good morning, and thanks for taking my call. Listen, I just want to say this. We are not in a political war. We are in a cultural war, okay? I think I might have mentioned this before with Cleon Skousen. Are you familiar with him?
No, but we have talked about it being a cultural war, not a political war, and I think that's right because these parties, if you really look at them, Lee, aren't they? It's really about the culture opposed to political parties.
Well, Cleon Skousen, and I mentioned this before, and I don't want to bore people, so I'll go through it real fast. He came up, and I'm only going to pick out, he had like 50, but I'm only going to give you the cultural things that I think are important. And number one, okay, it was eliminate laws governing obscenity, okay, calling, for them censorship in violation of people's free speech. That's what he called it, okay? That's what they were going to do. Then he said break down cultural standards of morality. Oh, do we get that? By promoting pornography, books, magazines and stuff like that. Then he goes and he says eliminate prayer in the schools, okay, and grounds that violates the principle of separation in state. Discredit the family as an institution. Get control. Here we go. Get control of the schools, use them as transmission belts for socialism, soften the curriculum, and get control of Teachers Association. And until we do that, until we start fighting a cultural war, we're going to lose. Because the political war, as you can see, we've already lost. When you get people siding with the enemy, the Iranians of all people, okay? And they're siding with them, and nobody does anything about them. Look we still don't have anybody going to jail, okay, for what they did with the FBI. What happened? What happened to Barack Obama? How come he's not in jail? And I mean in jail for giving money like that, our money that we earn, that it wasn't passed by Congress, to the Iranians like that. I mean, these things are so obvious what they're doing to us. It's demoralization, like I said before. That's Yuri Bezmenov. They're wearing us down to the point now that we actually have to argue. We have to actually argue that Iranians are our enemy, and it's okay for us to fight back. And they're saying, no, it isn't. I mean, you see how twisted and incredible this whole thing is, that we have become.
Did you catch the reporter who is speaking with Senator Warren, and really she was trying to avoid calling Qasem Soleimani a terrorist, and she had to basically corner her in and make her agree to, not even say it, but agree to that he was a terrorist.
Well, it's all psychological warfare on their part, which I said before, comes from Skousen, where you hit the culture. See, culture in our country is destroyed. The country is going to be destroyed from within, not from without, and that's our culture. And everything that we believed, we can't even believe in God anymore. We can't go to church anymore. Well, we can, of course. I'm just saying that, figuratively speaking, without being criticized. And this is the problem that we have. And nobody wants to speak up because nobody, and again, if you're a millennial or below now coming up in the Z group here, you're going to see that they don't know. They actually don't know because they've never been informed. They've never been taught. They've never been led to believe in the things that we believed in, like God, like the Ten Commandments. They don't, so they're not going to say anything, and they don't know. And there's nobody out there that's willing to teach them. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's the problem. We talk about people pulling off a MAGA hat off of a person. Why are they pulling a MAGA hat? They have no idea what they're doing, only what they're told to do. And we're not getting people who are thinking rationally. We're not thinking people who are based on logic and decency. And, of course, a religion. And I'm not saying that religion in general. I'm talking about, when I talk about religion, I don't want to go into Protestant or whatever. I talk about the Ten Commandments because those things, to me, work for everybody. If you're going to live in a community, you have to be that. Now, I tend to be a Catholic, but I'm not a practicing one, all of that, because I don't like the Pope and I go to different places, you know? So this is what they've done to me.
You don't like the Pope? That's a shame. He speaks so highly of you.
Oh, yeah. No. See, I call him the Pope, but he calls me the dope. So,
Pope-a-dope.
So, yes, and it is a rope-a-dope because they're roping us in.
Right.
And again, I don't mean to offend Catholics. I only ask them that they really look into what his policies are and what he's thinking. And again, there have been popes, God forbid, that have not been honest with the people. I mean, that may go back a while, but that's true. And what you're looking at again is this idealistic idea of a one world order. And this one world order, like I said before, is in play around the world now. And everybody's thinking that if we're all one happy world, okay, we'll be fine. But they don't realize that they're going to have to get rid of 50 to 60% of the people in this world right now who don't want that, who don't believe in that. We all have our identities. We all have our beliefs. And you can't make us all one. We don't work, you know, in one of these printing factories where we just print out what we're going to do and then just do it. We have beliefs, you know. And this is the part that gets me, okay, to the end. Congress does not show me at all that it has the same beliefs that I have. And that's the part that's disturbing.
It is.
I don't know how you would feel, but that's the way I look at it.
No, it is. But, Lee, I've got to run because we've got to get to our guests this morning, okay? Thank you, Lee. I always appreciate it. 508-871-7000. This is the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN and, of course, our affiliate in Western Massachusetts, AM 730 WACE. All right, so let me turn my attention to and invite into the conversation Gregory Wrightstone. He's the author of Inconvenient Facts, the science that Al Gore doesn't want you to know. So first of all, let me say good morning, Gregory.
Good morning to you.
Thank you for joining us. I know it's early on a Sunday morning, man.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure I was going to be able to join you. I ended up in the emergency room last night.
Oh, no. What happened?
Blood in my eye, my left eye, and possible. But anyhow, I'm fine. It's a retina issue, and it was.
Well, that
I got
would
back
concern
in
me.
about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I set my alarm to get up to talk to you. So.
All right. Well, then.
With one eye covered, I can do it. I can talk. I don't have to say.
It's radio, and that just I appreciate it all the more. Thank you so much because you're doing it under a stressful situation. First of all, congratulations on the book. The science that Al Gore doesn't want you to know. That is an inconvenient set of facts, isn't it?
It is, and I got to tell you, just really quickly, the book has been such a great success. Inconvenient Facts. We just we ran out. My main warehouse in Minnesota ran out of books 2 weeks ago. Amazon did not run out, but we just got our fifth printing in on Friday. So they're shipping out to Amazon again, so there won't be any lag in books there. So no, it's been very successful.
So people can still go to Amazon.
That's on Amazon, yes.
Right.
Or you can get it at my website, inconvenientfacts.xyz. There's great videos and interviews there.
All right, fantastic. Let's talk about this a little bit. First of all, first thing, right? You knew this was going to come from the media, from the left, right? All the fires in Australia. Yep. I've heard it blamed from climate change, which of course that's the term we use now, right? Because they didn't, climate warming wasn't working, and climate change to actually blame it on Trump. I've actually even heard them do that, which of course I think that's ludicrous to do that and to say that about it. And hasn't several people. Actually, I think it might even be over 100 or something, arrested for deliberately starting the fires in Australia. So it's not climate change. It's not President Trump. it's part of what happens. Hasn't the... let me back up for a second. I mean, let's tell people a little bit about your background, right? You're a geologist, the best-selling author here of Inconvenient Facts. You've been studying the Earth, basically, for what, 35 years?
Well, 40 plus.
40 plus, yeah, okay.
I don't want to... I'm getting old, man.
I'm right there with you, buddy.
Yeah, but I didn't set out to write a book. I set out to seek the truth, and it was that search because just like many of your listeners, I didn't know what to believe about so many things about climate change that we hear about, and it was this search for the truth that led me to write the book. Because I just found out as I dove into the base data, I just said, "Oh my God, they're lying to us," and about so many things. It's just
give us an example of it. First of all, so you're a geologist. You study the Earth, the pressures, the history of the Earth. That's all part.
I put things in a long-term geologic perspective rather than looking at things in decades or hundreds of years or even thousands of years. We need to really put it in this tens of thousands, millions of years perspective to see what's happening today and look at it in a long-term perspective. And it's we find out that by doing that we're in a warming trend. But just let me get back to my favorite subject, which is me. I'm just kidding about that. But,
enough about me. What do you think of me?
yeah, really. But I do want to say just to give your listeners, I was just recently accepted as an expert reviewer for the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. It's called the IPCC. So this is the global warming alarmist group, and I'm part of them now. So
wow.
I can put in my 2 cents. But let's get back to this. We're in a warming.
They accepted you. They don't want people who are just going to rubber stamp everything they.
Well, they've come under a lot of criticism for not having critical looks at this.
So they needed to balance it out a little bit.
Right.
Okay.
But we're in a warming trend. We've been warming for over 300 years. It started back in the late 1600s with the depths of the Little Ice Age. So we've been warming in fits and starts ever since. And so this warming trend started long before we could have our increases in CO2 could have had much effect on any warming.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we see is that this is probably what we're seeing is just the continuation of a natural cycle. And we see also looking back through human history and temperature history, we find that these since the end of the last ice age, we've had 9 other warming trends that are very similar to what we're in right now. All of them ended up warmer than we are today, and all of them lasted a little bit longer than what we are in right now. So if the past is a key to the future, which is one of the key tenets of geological thought process, is we look at the past to see how that can predict the future. We'll probably have another 80 or 100 years of warming, and based on geologic history, and it'll probably get another, who knows, might be 0.8 of a degree and a half or 2 degrees of warming. But the other thing I see as I look back through human history and relate human history to temperature history, we find that in each case, each one of these warming periods, great civilizations rose up. Food was bountiful. People were healthy and happy. And so we see there's a tremendous relationship between the rise and fall of temperature and the rise and fall of civilizations. It's the warm periods where people prospered and thrived. It's the cold periods, the intervening cold periods that had names like the Greek Dark Ages, the Dark Ages, and most recently the Little Ice Age. These periods of cold were horrific. And
Greg, what years did the Little Ice Age fall into? Just define that for
it started getting cold in the 13th century, 1200s, 1250 or so. It started cooling down. The period before that was called the Medieval Warm Period. This is the time of the High Middle Ages. When you think of the great cathedral building, the great advances, That was the medieval warm period, and then it dove into the cold of the Little Ice Age.
And when we talk about the Little Ice Age and the warming, what is the range of temperature that we are discussing here on average? Like, what's that range?
It's probably 1.5 degrees centigrade, so that's probably 4 degrees, 3.5 degrees Fahrenheit of temperature drop. So it doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a pretty big drop. It can cause really bad things to happen. And what we see each one of these cold periods, like the Little Ice Age, it accompanying the temperature drop were crop failure, famine, pestilence, mass depopulation in every case. In the Little Ice Age, this was a period of time from 1250 to the probably late 1700s, 1800s. Half the population of Iceland perished. A third of the population of the entire world perished during that time. And in fact, the witch hunts of the late Middle Ages in Europe started. They're associated with that period of cold. As it started getting cold, crops started failing.
And they blamed it on the witches.
And they were weather-causing witches, and they started killing them, burning them. Most were burned at the stake. And then in the 1400s, the Pope actually issued a papal bull stating that yes, there are such things as weather-causing witches, and if you find them, you need to kill them. And boy, they did. And each village was, when they killed a witch, they reported it to the Vatican City and the Pope. So we have pretty good records of the witches killed. And then what's fascinating about this, and if your listeners are interested, they go to my website. I have a video I created, a short video on this witch hunt. I open it up with that scene from Monty Python where in the Holy Grail, where they're dragging the witch through the street, and she's going, "Oh, I'm not a witch, I'm not a witch," and that's how it opens up. Fascinating video at inconvenientfacts.xyz. Go there, but it has all the charts we're going to talk about here. So what's fascinating? So the Pope issues a papal bull, and they're going, "Yeah, we can kill the witches." And at around 1500, it warmed up again, and the crops came back. Well, why did that happen? Come on, you're a smart guy. Why did it warm up and the crops come back?
Yeah.
They killed all the witches.
They killed all the witches, so this must work.
Yeah.
They solved the problem.
We did really good.
The
We
Pope
killed
was
all the
right.
witches. Right, now. And so the crops came back, and everybody was fat and happy, and then around about 40 years later, it really started getting cold. And that's when the really big pogroms against the witches, supposed witches, took place. Supposedly, somewhere around 30 to 40,000 supposed witches were burnt at the stake, most of them. Some of them drowned, but most were burned at the stake. 30 to 40,000.
Wow.
And it's funny now. They were blaming weather-causing. They were blaming people for bad climate that made things go bad and bad weather. Isn't that very similar to what we have today?
Isn't it? Right. Yeah.
Now we're people are blaming humans for our sins of emission. You see a little clever pun there.
Yeah.
And that they need us to go back and reduce our carbon dioxide output. And I'm a huge proponent of how the modest rise in temperature combined with increasing CO2 are hugely benefiting the Earth's ecosystems and humanity. We're seeing tremendous benefits from this our changing climate. And I mean, if you look on the back of my SUV, I've got a bumper sticker that says "I heart CO2," and I have "I heart CO2" T-shirts and other paraphernalia. We just see the tremendous benefits of increasing carbon dioxide. In fact,
first of all, I mean, isn't that the whole point here? The Earth is an incredibly, it's just an incredible system. I mean, as an ecosystem, the Earth is a marvel when you start to look at it. Us, for one thing, I'm talking about man, in the big picture of things, Greg, aren't we just kind of a flash, a drop in the bucket, or just a second in time? I mean, we're going to, you know what I'm saying? In the big picture, in the development of the solar system, the Earth being created, I mean, this time that we have man recording history and so forth, what would that be like in the big picture? We're nothing. We're just a fleck of a millisecond in the big picture. So time-wise, that's what I'm talking about. Time-wise.
Time-wise.
So
I would argue.
To talk about the Earth has been cooling and warming up and changing, and I mean, you know, if we go to the whole Big Bang theory and the Earth started to cool and it formed, and I mean, it's still developing. The Earth hasn't matured yet.
Well, yeah, we've had an outsized, for a species, we've had an outsized effect on the Earth. We just have. If we our burning of fossil fuels is increasing CO2, which I will argue is a real benefit.
Exactly.
Nothing but benefits of that.
Let me say this. I have always said, look, I'm not going to deny that that dropping rubbish into the ocean and plastic into the ocean, that these things, of course, they have effect. That's not, these synthesized plastics, they're not nature. They're not naturally occurring in nature. So, yeah, they're going to have an effect on it. When we get to the people, the Al Gores of the world, who are making hundreds of millions of dollars on scaring everybody with the global warming effect, to me, it's a big scam when it comes to that. We've got India and China, which we can't tell them what to do. But who is more responsible for dumping plastics into the oceans, United States or China? United States or India?
Southeast Asia.
In Southeast Asia, I should say. So the thing is, when I look at the Al Gores of the world and they want to impose all of these, we're just dealing with here in Massachusetts, or New England, I should say, the TCI, this climate initiative, where they're going to slap like 27 cents on a gallon of gas for the climate initiative. And all it is to me is a way to raise money and control us more. It's not going to fix anything. It doesn't change anything. So I think that is what bothers me with the whole thing. Is at the same time, I'm saying, we can't just keep continuing to drop plastics and trash into the ocean. That's not good. I get that. That's not good. But taxing us and being the only country on the planet that's literally paying for it isn't going to solve it either, when other countries aren't taking any steps to it, right? How many coal factories is China opening every year?
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I took a look. I'm working with a group out of Massachusetts right now. You're going to be joining the RGGI, which is the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, and that'll be putting cap and trade on electricity generation. And I took a look at Massachusetts. Massachusetts CO2 emissions comprise 1.2% of all the U.S. emissions, and if Massachusetts completely reduced 100% of its CO2 emissions, which is not their goal is, well, actually it is, but they don't state it. The reduction. And before we get going there...
Actually, before we get going, we got to take a hard break at the bottom of the hour. Greg, can you just hold on?
All right.
Get through this. We'll continue. Folks, we're going to continue with Gregory Wrightstone, author of Inconvenient Facts, the science that Al Gore doesn't want you to know. Stick with us. We'll be back in a moment. Good morning and welcome to Handling Change from the Candiani Insurance Studios. I'm Joe Mangiacotti, and Brian Carpenter of One Worcester Homes joins us this week. The purchase or sale of your home or investment property could be one of the largest. Is this the same one? Brian can help you handle those challenges. Good morning, Same one that we played at I wanted to 6:30? jump right into something. We talk about buying and selling, listing a property, the things to look for, and you are always telling us about your people and what you do that's different than anyone else. And it got me thinking about a career in real estate. What is it like to have a career in real estate, and how long after you become
become a realtor, or I should say more accurately, an agent, right, before you can expect your first paycheck.
Just watch HGTV. They'll tell you how easy it is, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't have access
So
to what?
becoming a real estate agent is a fairly regulated process. It's one of the things you do need a license from the state. So the first thing you need to do is get your education. Massachusetts has a 40-hour mandatory class before you can even go and take the test. You can get that at a few different places,
Send me an email so that
One Worcester
I
Homes
catch
has started
it.
one of those courses. It's One Worcester Homes Real Estate Academy on Facebook. There are some other places that actually offer online classes as well. So some people can take those classes right from their bed or sometimes from their job. But there are online classes available. Once you finish that class, you have to go and take a test that's very well regulated by the state, just as you would if you were an electrician or a plumber or a lot of other industries that are state regulated and state licensed.
Well, this test, I assume, deals a lot with maybe the law involved here. It deals with maybe math, for that matter. But I don't think they can really test you on how well you can sell a house or deal with people.
Yeah, and again, that's one of the things that One Worcester Homes agents do well. We're really not trying to sell that house. We're out to protect the client. After you pass that test, that brings you to the next major milestone in a real estate career, is choosing where to hang your license or choosing where to work. There's a lot of different places out there, and as soon as you pass your test, you're going to start getting mail and email and text messages. People are going to be recruiting you. Just be aware, this is not a job interview for you. This is a job interview for that brokerage. What can they offer you for your career, and what can they do differently than other places?
Interesting point is that you should be looking at it as what can they offer and what tools do they have for me, opposed to what can I bring to the table for them.
Absolutely. A lot of agents will sign with the first brokerage they talk to. More often, they'll even sign with the brokerage who they took their course through or wherever the courses were located. They just don't realize that you should be shopping for your brokerage. And, usually 1.5 to 2 years in, new agents will start to figure out that there could be different and better options out there that might fit them and their personality better. So it's definitely an industry where people do move, 2 to 3 years into their career, they tend to find their forever home.
So if you become a real estate agent, what are the things you want to look for in the brokerage firm where you're going to hang your license?
So there's a lot of different things, but the one word that really comes to mind is support. Do you have someone that will answer the phone when you call? Do you have someone that will show you how to do paperwork correctly? Do you have someone that will help provide you some leads or a jump start to your career? It's not uncommon for an agent to go 3, 6, 12 months without closing a deal, which obviously isn't good financially, but it takes time to learn the things that you need to do.
What is the average time to your first deal? Because you don't get paid till that first deal closes, right?
Yeah, that's the thing about real estate that a lot of people don't understand is we don't get paid until the completion of the sale. And that means you have your keys and you're moving into the house, or you've given away your keys and you're driving away in the moving truck if you're selling. So we put all of our work and all of our energy and marketing dollars, we put all of that out there in advance to be paid later on when the property does close. If you're really putting your effort in and working as a full-time agent, 30 to 45 days when you start, you should put your first property under agreement, and about 45 days later you're going to get paid. So you should be about 3 to 4 months from when you start making an effort in real estate until you see some of the fruits of those labors.
Well, that's a substantial investment in both your time and, of course, money, because you have no income during that time. Not everybody can really jump into real estate full time, full force.
A lot of people absolutely start this as a part-time career. They close a deal or two, maybe they do 3 in their whole first year, and they put that money aside so they have the opportunity to cut back on their hours at the regular job. We have a nurse in our office who cut back from full-time to per diem. Now she works when she needs to instead of all the time. So there's definitely a learning curve, a growing curve, and it takes time to build up your client base and for people to understand that this is a career and not a hobby or something you do for extra money.
I've always been curious, Brian, is there one particular industry or field of employment that you find a lot of people either also do real estate or transition into full-time realtors?
School teachers make amazing real estate agents. They have the time off in the summer when things are really getting busy in real estate. They have a very set schedule, and although they can't exactly answer their phone during those, school hours, from 2 o'clock on or 3 o'clock on, they're available to their clients, they're available on weekends, and that's when real estate happens. So some of our best agents come from the education industry.
Oh, that's fantastic. And you said that One Worcester Homes now offers a real estate academy.
Absolutely. One Worcester Homes Real Estate Academy can take care of the 40 hours of education and get you all set up to take your test.
Last question real quick. Is there any cost to taking the real estate classes in schools across the board or with One Worcester Homes?
Absolutely. The cost for those classes is typically between $350 and $500. One Worcester Homes Real Estate Academy is at the lower end of that because we really want to get people in there and meet as many people as we can, and if we get the best and the brightest to come through our class, we're going to keep them with our brokerage if we can.
All right, Brian. Again, fantastic information, good knowledge for everybody to have. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for joining us for Handling Change from the Cantiani Insurance Studios. Join us each week at 7:30 as we give you the tools to handle the changes in your life. Visit us at handlingchange.info, and you can find Brian at Facebook at One Worcester Homes or email him at oneworcesterhomes@gmail.com. And of course, you can call Brian at 508-494-8757. For Brian, I'm Joe Mangiacotti.
It's time to talk to Joe.
All right, folks, welcome back to our final segment here for the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Our guest right now is Gregory Wrightstone. He's the author of Inconvenient Facts, the sciences, or rather the science that Al Gore doesn't want you to know. And Greg is a geologist who's been studying the Earth processes for over 4 decades. He has a bachelor's and a master's, and he was in the search of the truth, and that led him to the book. So, Greg, again, thank you for joining us, even injured this morning.
Oh, yeah. Hey, before we get going here, I want to give a shout-out to my, I have a smartphone app that's really cool, really awesome.
Yeah.
And my app developer is from Norwalk, and he's listening in, so I want to give a shout-out to Carl Kowalski, who's a big fan of yours. And but we've got our app that's approaching 50,000 downloads. It's a powerful tool. Allows you to put these inconvenient facts that are in the book in the palm of your hand, so you can have that way. If your idiot nephew, if you're out to dinner with your family, your idiot nephew Billy, he tells you, well, Uncle, did you know the polar bears are going extinct? And you can go, wait a minute, Billy. And you can pull out your smartphone and look at, here's fact number 52. Here's a 60-year polar bear population history that shows they're increasing in population, Billy.
Oh, that's fantastic. So first of all, Carl, thank you. Thank you for the app, and thank you for listening. And you can get that on Google Play and Apple?
App Store.
App Store, okay. Good.
In fact, we rolled it out. I rolled it out back in March on the Glenn Beck show. 2 days later, Apple removed it from the App Store. Of course, Al Gore sits on their board of directors, and we fought with them. We tweaked it, and Carl, it's the gold medal app for anything related. There's no other app related to climate change that comes.
And what is the name? What do you search for to get it?
You can search for Inconvenient App or Inconvenient Facts. If you just type in Inconvenient, it should come up, because it's been so popular.
All right. And meanwhile, folks, you can go to inconvenientfacts.xyz, and .xyz is like .com, .co, .info.
Right.
So
right.
XYZ, Inconvenient Facts. So there was an inconvenientfacts.com already?
Well, someone had already selected it. But they had it up for sale. They had never used it.
For $30,000, $40,000, right?
They were asking $5,000 bucks.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, and they'd had it up for sale for 10 years. So I said, well, I offered them $500 bucks, and they immediately the next day put it up to $20,000. And I told them to go pound salt.
Yeah.
So I said, we'll go with XYZ, and it's been. I get close to 10,000 unique new visitors per month.
There you go.
There's just loaded with tremendous amount of data there.
So the you went into the search. What is the biggest misdirection, mistruth that Al Gore has put out there that you can prove by?
Well, probably that CO2 is a danger, and that we're actually that we have too much CO2. If we put our CO2 levels today in context, I don't want to throw out a lot of numbers. People will be turning off the radio in droves, so I'll give you a few. We're a little over 400 parts per million right now of CO2. That's an increase of 130 parts per million since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. And that sounds like a lot. It's about a 40% increase. It sounds like a lot, but when we put it in a big long-term perspective, we find that the average, and again, we're a little over 400, the average CO2 levels throughout Earth's history since the Precambrian is 2,600 parts per million, 6.5 times what we are today. Back early in Earth's history, it was 6, 7, 8,000 parts per million. Again, 20 times what we are today. And so when we look at, we've seen since the first flowering plants evolved back some 140 million years ago, we see that CO2 levels have declined from 2,500 parts per million down. And at the end of the last ice age, we got to a dangerously low level. At 150 parts per million, I call that the line of death. That's the minimum threshold for most plant life to survive. And we nearly got there. So we're only slightly above that line of death right now. So actually, if we look at it through geologic and Earth's history, we find that we don't have too much CO2, we don't have enough. We're actually CO2 impoverished. That's the big story. And this is the...
Which sounds exactly the opposite of what we're being told.
Exactly.
And doesn't the CO2 cause plant life to flourish and grow?
Yeah, we see that in the book. I capture studies. More than 3,500 studies were done by Dr. Craig Idso and his team in laboratory studies. They studied using these. They studied 345 different species of plants. Each one of those plants, with the addition of 300 parts per million, increased crop growth or plant growth. It's called biomass, the weight of the plants, anywhere from 4.7% up to nearly 80% increase of crop growth. And that's a good thing.
Wow.
I mean, that means that we can feed the hungry.
Right.
That with a growing population, increasing CO2 can spur crop growth tremendously, and it has. And we see that according to NASA. If you just Google NASA, 2 words, NASA and greening, and you'll find that the Earth is what NASA calls greening. In other words, vegetation's increasing. More than 50% of the Earth is what they call greening. Vegetation's increasing. And less than 4% of the Earth is what they call browning, or decrease in vegetation. That's a really, really good trade-off. That's a trade-off I'd take any day of the week. And we see that this increase. Now, bear in mind, too, we are in a warming trend. And because we're warming, the oceans warm. And because the oceans are warming, there's more evaporation, and that leads to a slight increase in precipitation. And in some cases, they'll it's going to lead to flooding. In some cases, it might. But the big story here is that this slight increase in precipitation combined with increases in CO2 is leading to this greening of the Earth. And we find that a lot of this greening and thriving is going on in formerly arid areas of the Earth, like the southern Sahara. It's called an area called the Sahel. 300,000 square kilometers of former desert have turned into a lush grassland. We're seeing, and people are moving back into that area where they haven't lived in many, many hundreds of years. Animals, gazelles, even amphibians have moved back into this area. It's a huge, huge story, and we see it being played out in formerly arid areas of India and China. Actually, Australia is in fire right now. They're in they have a weather event causing a drought that's been really bad for a year.
Right.
But again, if we look at Australia, the long-term picture is not one of increasing drought, but decreasing drought.
Got it. Greg, you want to take a question? A caller wants to jump in.
All right.
All right, 508-871-7000, folks. Let's go to Rich. Rich, good morning. You're on with myself and Gregory.
Good morning, Joe. Yeah, Gregory, I got a couple things. Really, first of all, I want to tell you about Al Gore. I don't know if you're aware of this, but he spends $22,000 a month on electricity. Were you aware of that?
No, I didn't know the number.
Yeah, okay.
The picture of this guy's was at Tennessee, his mansion. It's lit up like a city at night.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? He's got the exterior lights, the whole mansion. There's pictures of it going on top of the fact there's like 3 SUVs, big SUVs in the driveway, and not to mention his private plane.
Right, so, and they have zinc. The Gores, they own zinc mines, and they're dumping it in the river. They get, I don't know how many times they get sued for that, environmental suit. But the thing I want to talk about, Gregory, is the fact that 120 years ago, I don't know if you're going to agree with me or not, but I don't know, it's kind of hard to argue with Mother Nature. They were growing oranges and grapefruits there, Gregory. Right?
Where?
And right now, the frost line, Gregory, has gone 20 miles south of Tampa. There's a whole county there in Florida called Citrus County. They can't even grow oranges and grapefruits there because of the frost line. How can we explain what's going on there and say we have global warming? I'll listen to you off the air.
Yeah, I don't know about that particular instance, I haven't heard about that or read about that, but I do know that looking in the big picture, looking back thousands of years, when the Romans were in England, they were growing citrus crops in the north of England. So we know that at that time, during what was called the Roman warm period, it was much warmer than it is today. We can look at these things historically in the historical significance to find that these previous warm trends were much warmer than today. In fact, they were growing a crop called millet. It's a grain, and it's that little white seed that you find in your bird seed. But it was being grown in Scandinavia. Well, millet can't be grown anywhere but in tropical and semi-tropical climates. So we know that, again, back in the previous warm periods, it was much warmer than it is today, and that flies in the face of their argument that today's temperatures are unusual and unprecedented, which is the argument.
Yeah. Let me ask before we run out of time. Are we a virus on the Earth?
No. We're doing very, very good things for the Earth. We are having effect. We have done bad things. I'm not going to disagree with that. What the big story is that we're doing much, much better. One of the big stories I've thrown out here. Well, let me tell you this. I'm a senior fellow for the Cornwall Alliance, which is a Christian group, and we believe that we should use all of Earth's resources for the betterment of mankind. And don't you agree? I think you agree with me, right?
Yeah, isn't that what it is? In other words, Earth, we are a product of Earth, are we not? The Earth formed, it grew, we are, our salt content is the same as the ocean. We are part of the Earth. We breathe the oxygen and we survive because that's what the Earth is. So aren't we supposed to use everything the Earth has given forward? It gives us nourishment. It gives us food.
And we should do it as good stewards.
Exactly.
And that's my basic philosophy is to promote using all of. But so many of these alarmists don't want that to happen. They don't want us to use all of our resources. They want us to punish ourselves, and it's ridiculous. We before we broke there at the end of the last segment, we talked a little bit about this Massachusetts getting into the RGGI, the regional greenhouse gas, and if Massachusetts reduced 100% of its emissions, again, Massachusetts has 1.2% of the nation's emissions, it would avert one thousandth of a degree Fahrenheit by the year 2050. And what your people in Massachusetts and your legislature and governor are proposing right now is to economically cripple your state, increase energy costs, increase the cost of goods and services tremendously, and drive those industries that are big users of electricity out of the state to neighboring states and out of the region where they don't have to pay such high energy costs. And this will be a cap and trade system that's proposed, and it's for virtually close to zero effect of weather, and it's something that should be fought tremendously, tooth and nail.
Agreed, and is on a bigger scale. All of these climate initiatives would handicap the United States, and they want us to get into this, the carbon credits, and just if you listen to some of the polls out there, right? Get rid of our vehicles and not have airplanes and all of that, but only in America, because we can't tell China to do this. We can't tell China to stop opening coal plants and stop dumping.
I was just in a panel discussion. It's been interesting. Over the last couple of months, I've gotten into one official debate with a climate alarmist professor, a radical climate alarmist professor. That was at Cornell University in Ithaca, New York, back in November, which was pretty interesting. And then just a few weeks ago, I participated in a panel discussion, and at the very end, I I threw this out to my other panelists, and I said, if the United States entirely reduced 100% of its carbon dioxide emissions, it would only avert 0.04 of a degree Fahrenheit by 2050. And he got all, one of the alarmist professor of geology got all worried. Oh well, that's true, but we're all in this together. It's not just the United States. We all have to work together, including China and India. Well, China and India are not about to reduce their carbon dioxide emissions. They're going full bore, flat out. Just they're the number one and the United States is number 2 emitter. India is number 3. So the three of us, India, China, and the United States, are the biggest emitters of CO2. And 2 of those 3 top CO2 emitters have no intentions of reining in CO2 emissions from coal.
But it would handicap United States economically. It would be punishing our citizens, would be saddled with these expenses. We would be not allowed to drive our vehicles, fly aircraft. I don't know how that could possibly... I mean, how could our society today work without air travel, without cars?
Yeah, they don't want you having personal vehicles unless it's powered by electric.
Just government officials, the party people. It would be like post-World War II, Cold War, Soviet Union, only where the party officials had
no more trips to Home Depot for you.
Yeah.
You go get that. You want sheetrock? Well, you're going to have to take public transit to Home Depot to get your stuff. No, thank you. I don't want that. Your listeners don't want that.
The other part of this, Gregory, is everybody's talking about electric cars. Where do they think the electricity is coming from? I mean, when you go home and you plug that car in, where do you think that power is coming from? And, there was a picture that floated around, and I think it was in Sweden, based on the color of the logo on the truck. But it was an electric car that ran out of power, so it was a diesel truck with a diesel generator on the side of the road charging up an electric car. Right?
Oh, my goodness.
So when people, they drive with their Prius and their Teslas and so forth, I just have to say, where do you think that electricity is coming from? It's coming in this area. It's coming from a coal plant. Most likely coal or maybe nuclear.
And the other thing we've talked about here is that when you're talking about wind and solar, no one talks. Well, I do, but very few people talk about the front end or the back end of wind and solar. The front end, by I mean, is where are all the rare earth minerals coming from? They're coming from horrifically environmentally degrading open pit mines in Mongolia and China, cobalt, and I'll ask your listeners to Google cobalt, 2 words, cobalt and Congo, and find out how many thousands of young children are being used in the cobalt mines in the Congo.
Cobalt is used for solar panels?
It's for electric batteries, mainly for the electric cars, Tesla. So they're exploiting children in these cobalt mines in the Congo. It's horrific, and no one talks about that. They're exploiting these. Greta Thunberg said, "How dare you? You've robbed me of my childhood." Tell that to an 8-year-old boy in the Congo,
breathing in those fumes.
It's horrible. Yeah, you've lost your childhood. Yeah. Spare me, you spoiled little brat. No. Yeah. How dare you lecture me when there are children toiling that are half your age, toiling in open pit mines in the Congo to fulfill your fantasy of.
And what happens to those children if they don't meet that quota for their day?
Yeah, I have no idea. But it's a bad thing, and she comes from the most spoiled generation ever, and that they don't appreciate what they have, and she certainly doesn't. But the other thing, that's the front end of it. The back end of it is what do we do with these things when they've exceeded their lifespan, which is somewhere between 20 and 25 years. That's coming up for a lot of these wind turbines. With the wind turbines, they're not necessarily hazardous waste, but they take up huge amounts of landfill space. The big blades, and what they have to do when they are accepted in the landfills, they have to cut them in pieces, and then they have to drive heavy equipment over them to squash them down. But they're filling up. They'll be filling up landfills right and left.
What are those turbine blades made out of?
It's a carbon composite. But if you can imagine, these aren't just flat blades. These are...
No, I live almost under one. There's a...
how do you like it?
Worcester, Massachusetts, there's a Holy Name High School put up several years ago, put up their own wind turbine, and on some program that they had to power the high school, it's a private Catholic high school, power the school and sell back to the grid, I guess. And I got to tell you, Greg, it was, at that time I was doing morning drive at a radio station, so I would leave my house at 3:30 in the morning, say, to be on air at 5:30 in the morning, and it wasn't there the day before, and I left, and I come home around 2:33 in the afternoon, and I walk out on my balcony, and I pause for a second because I realized there's this 201-foot wind turbine. And my first thought, to tell you the truth, was, has that always been there? And did I just notice it now? And it turns out it was, and they literally put it up in that day. And I knew nothing about it. And my friend, I reached out to her. She worked for me for years, was formerly my secretary. And she had read the whole article about it. She said, no, it costs X amount of dollars. It's 201 feet, and they put it up. And I'm in a condo building, and the neighbor at that time was pretty much like, just disgusted with it. And I said, well, why is that? He goes, so it's so noisy. Now, honestly, during the day, I couldn't hear a thing. And I like to go out on the balcony at midnight or 1 in the morning. You could hear it, but it was a very, nothing crazy. But if I had my druthers of looking at that out my balcony or an oil pump, I would take the wind turbine. Aesthetically, that is. Now, which is better and which is worse for the environment, a wind turbine or an oil pump?
Well, I would say the wind turbine, because of what's needed to create it, and what's needed, what's going to happen at the end life of it.
So we really don't have a process to recycle or break down those blades when they run their course.
Well, you can bury them in landfills.
And that's
it. Just takes up. They'll be filling up landfills right and left.
Okay. Yeah.
And I do thank you for having me on this morning.
Yeah, I thank you for working through your injury, and I hope that turns out whatever. Best of luck with you. I hope everything gets okay.
Yeah, good.
And it doesn't turn out. And again, people can go to inconveniencefacts.xyz and get more information. And your book is available on Amazon right now.
Yes, it is.
All right, Greggy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, folks, that's going to wrap up the Joe Mangiacotti show for this weekend. I'll be on Jerry Doherty show on Thursday. I'll join Jerry from 11 to 1 on this Thursday. So check that out. Check Jerry out every day, as a matter of fact, Monday through Friday. And, of course, we'll be back next Saturday morning. And special announcement. Mike Wade will join me next weekend. He's going to pop back in and say, hey, what's up? Enjoy your weekend. Joe out.
WACE Chicopee and WCRN Worcester.
8 o'clock. Millions on alert. Mass shooting. I'm Christopher Cruz. Hundreds of thousands of people are without power, and millions are under flood watches this morning. Vicious storms plowed through the South and Midwest yesterday. At least 11 deaths are being blamed on those storms, and slick road conditions are expected in the Northeast today, says National Weather Prediction Center meteorologist Patrick Burke.
Probably one of the bigger stories with this particular storm is the ice that we've seen across Missouri.